I watched my twin brother, once full of life, suffer a stroke at 6. Years later, I finally opened up and felt true happiness. To clarify, I am composing this post at midnight while I am quite intoxicated and am not a native English speaker, so I apologize for sharing my entire life story, which is as lengthy as a fan fiction about the loud house. Hello everyone, and welcome to my first post here. I am uncertain whether this will help me even a little bit, mainly because it's Reddit, but I feel compelled to seek some advice from a platform that likely won't provide any. I have always been a person who thinks deeply and plans everything and everyone. I do not know if this is a specific condition like autism or something similar. I have never attended therapy or consulted any doctors about it, except for my sister, who is quite knowledgeable in these matters. I can only speculate on the root of why I am the person I am today. I enjoyed a happy childhood with a loving mother, a hard-working father, a funny and kind sister, and my true other half, my twin brother. My brother and I played together and shared thoughts on nearly everything. Everything was wonderful until I turned 6. We wanted to have breakfast as a family, but it seemed my brother had slept longer than usual. We called him multiple times, but he did not respond, so I went to wake him up, but he never stirred. To make a long story short, we called an ambulance, and it was discovered that he had suffered a stroke. Yes, even though he was only 6 years old, which turned my entire life upside down. The unfortunate part? He was misdiagnosed, leading to even worse conditions. In the end, he survived, but he cannot speak, his left arm is unresponsive, and he couldn't walk without a wheelchair for several years, but he survived. I was even given the choice between starting school or staying with my brother for his rehabilitation for a year. Naturally, I chose my brother, and I would make the same choice again. During that year, I matured more than a typical 6-year-old and learned that life does not simply offer you things without some sort of cost. Nevertheless, I still wanted to share my thoughts and achievements to spread joy wherever possible. Let's fast forward to when I started school and participated in a sports festival. During hockey, I accomplished something that others struggled to achieve, and I wanted to tell the supervising teacher how incredible I felt about it. However, all she responded with was, "Yes, yes," completely ignoring me. I now understand that she needed to hear from everyone, but it shattered something inside me. I just moved on. In other instances, when I wanted to share something cool with adults, they generally provided the same dismissive replies. Eventually, I graduated to 5th grade German school system, by the way, and was placed in a chaotic class, known by the teachers as the worst class in the school, ironically. I worked hard to make friends, connecting with various groups like introverts and the popular crowd, forming my own opinions about each of them. However, by about age 14, I became less inclined to be as open as I had been, deeming it childish or something similar. I decided to stick with my true friends, so I stopped engaging with others as much as before. Because I never wanted to lose my real friends, I remained silent, enduring any mean-spirited incidents directed at me. This mentality persisted throughout my next classes, even as those friends transformed into neo-Nazis, drug users, or general criminals. I began to lose empathy for anyone outside my circle and never cared much about them, even toying with their fears a bit. I was fascinated by fears and phobias back then and still am. I have arachnophobia but still love spiders, which seems strange yet captivating to me. A significant turning point in my life occurred when my class was split upon my promotion to 10th grade, blending me with a brand new class of unfamiliar faces. I, who had always stood quietly beside my true friends while absorbing negativity in my life, now had to make a crucial choice: stay as I was or take a risk and adapt. My inner voice, what I referred to as my tulpa, though I had never created one, I wished to, immediately opposed change since it was used to planning every possible misstep in my life. At one point, I even entertained the idea of carving part of my face with a knife to provide a physical space for this persona I designated as Abraxas, similar to Two-Face from the Batman saga with his dual personality. Ultimately, I chose to shift my mindset and friend circles within this new class. I befriended a group of girls, a nice gamer girl, a hilariously crazy girl who was the sister of one of my best friends, and another girl who appeared superficial but was actually funny and kind-hearted. After spending considerable time together, I integrated into their group as their unexpected fourth member. I even secretly developed a crush on the gamer girl and attempted to pursue a relationship with her. But in the end, it led nowhere when she casually mentioned during a random conversation that she was gay. That indelible sting pricked my heart, yet I swallowed the pain and continued on because I had anticipated this outcome. A few months later, we went on a class trip to Dresden and Prague. I never imagined that this week would alter my life and personality so dramatically. On the second day, we had a talking circle with 8 of us in a room where we shared our stories. The gamer girl was the first to speak. I will not disclose her story out of respect, but her final sentence hit me hard. If I were not the person I am now, I would have chosen my name as my boyfriend. At that moment, I felt something inside me shatter like glass. Surprisingly, I could not just bury the emotion as I usually did. Something genuinely broke within me, something entirely unexpected and unplanned, leading me to experience a new feeling I had never encountered before. The next day, we traveled to Prague for a day, and that same feeling lingered within me. I tried to ignore it, but it proved difficult. I aimed to enjoy my time with friends in that magnificent city, a joy that was ultimately marred by a migraine that can suddenly strike me. The pain of the migraine forced me to ponder trivial thoughts like, maybe I could have changed something, or perhaps I can still achieve a romantic relationship with her, even if I know it would lead me to a dead end. I nearly burst into tears as I walked the streets, tormented by those thoughts. I had never loathed my mind and feelings more than I did that day. 2 days later, I played Mario Kart with friends until midnight, indulging in alcohol. Eventually, the discussion transitioned into a session where we expressed our life experiences. After hearing their stories, I could no longer remain silent. The accumulated pain from the past days and my entire life of suppressing my feelings and putting on a facade no longer worked. I spoke without reservation about everything, my brother, my old class, and even more. I finally liberated myself from the burden I had carried for my entire life. After that trip, I returned home as a transformed person, a happier individual open to new experiences. I felt as if I were finally living my life authentically. It even influenced my physical appearance. At the beginning of 2024, I was an unattractive guy weighing 90 kg, but by the end of the year, I had lost weight and maintained 69 kg. It felt as though my previous mental burden had caused my excess weight, and casting that oppressive mentality aside led to my newfound health. I finally experienced true happiness. However, even with school behind me, I still grappled with my thoughts, the subconscious planning that dictated my life and accounted for every possible scenario. Tomorrow, my brother might die. What should I do then? Or, the friend group that has helped me grow as a person might discard me like trash in 2 days. How should I react in that situation? I could not rid myself of the most significant burden I carried, my incessant planning thoughts. Sometime later, our friend group organized a camping sleepover at the beach. On that night, I pondered everything so intensely that one of them took me for a walk, wanting to know what was troubling me. After an hour of conversation, we concluded that my intense thinking stemmed from the trauma of my brother's stroke. I had subconsciously trained myself to plan for every eventuality to avoid experiencing another unexpected twist in my life. I finally discovered the reason for my thoughts, yet this revelation did not cure the issue. I could not even cry in that moment. I had forgotten how to weep. Eventually, when I began my first real job training as a metalworker, my entire family went on vacation without me because of work obligations, leaving me home alone. I invited my friends over, but only one could make it, the crazy funny girl, who was the sister of my best friend. After that day, I developed a crush on her because she mirrored my quirks and humor. I eventually confessed my feelings, and she responded, "I would have never expected that." Unfortunately, that was the last time I spoke with her in person due to work commitments. I still communicate with her via WhatsApp, but only regarding casual, humorous topics. I turned 18 on January 27, and before I got home from work that day, I encountered my best friend, the brother of my crush, who broke down in public due to a tragic family event. I had no words to offer in that moment, but I also did not feel anything. I did not feel sad for him, even though I understood his emotions. I could not cry either. It sounds insane and morbid, I know. I have known him since 6th grade, and we have shared many similarities in our lives, yet that was how I felt. I sent a message to my crush to express my condolences moments later, and she simply replied with a thank you. After this incident, I resumed life as if nothing had occurred, though I could scarcely think of anything but her, and not the tragedy unfolding before me. Now I sit in my room, unsure of what to do except wait for tomorrow. I told my best friend during New Year's that I confided in his sister about my feelings, yet now it feels as though nothing has transpired. I often hear her voice in our Discord calls, as if nothing is amiss, and my friend acts as though everything is normal too. I have no idea what to do anymore. I feel entirely hollow. I frequently drink excessively at midnight, listening to music while seated in my bathroom, pondering my wrongdoings, but I am never able to find answers. I often contemplate, while waiting for the train that will take me to vocational school, the possibility of just jumping in front of it to escape the thoughts that have haunted me my whole life. But thus far, I have not persuaded myself to go through with it. Still, I feel completely empty to the extent that I struggle to distinguish between reality and imagination. And this is the lengthy account of 60% of my life that I have just disclosed on this platform. I began writing at 12 a.m. and completed it by 3 a.m. I am really intoxicated and possibly depressed. I have never sought therapy, as I mentioned earlier. I apologize for sharing this content that I will likely delete upon sobering up. Have a wonderful day or night, dear reader, and I have enormous respect for you if you manage to read all of this. Cheers. Story 2. I planned my grad party solo, faced backlash over designs, and Mark secretly booked a venue without consulting me. Total betrayal. I, 18F, have been organizing my entire class's graduation party for several months now. There is technically a team, but none of them have contributed significantly, so everyone in my grade knows that I am essentially managing this event on my own. At first, I struggled with my feelings about my classmates' lack of participation while still wanting to hear their feedback. I recognize that opinions are important, but some individuals need to engage their minds more thoughtfully. In the meantime, another student, Mark, 18M, began assisting me with the planning. Though he was quite critical, his feedback was often rational, and he made an effort to consider the majority of people's views, which made the process more manageable. For some context, my graduation will not only feature the essentials like food and music, but also a customized hoodie and an activities list. We decided on these elements to ensure that the event would be engaging, given the diverse and somewhat divided nature of my grade. We had an expanded planning team, with 2 individuals primarily responsible for designing the hoodie. These 2 individuals, L18F and Julia 18F, are my close friends. They are quite popular and receive a lot of feedback, which is justified since their graphic design skills are excellent. Prior to any official planning, they expressed a desire to participate but preferred a smaller role due to our upcoming final exams. After some time, they presented 2 initial designs that, although based on the same concept, incorporated different elements. I found them very creative and was genuinely impressed. However, a number of people did not share my enthusiasm. Given their popularity, this feedback was largely overlooked. Eventually, I felt compelled to step in and represent the opinions of those who were dissatisfied, which put a strain on my friendship with them. But I believed it was necessary. They understood my position, and we proceeded with a vote on alternative designs, which, to make matters worse, involved concepts rather than fully developed ideas that my peers had me fight for. Ultimately, Julia and Elle's design won, but my relationship with them became somewhat fragile, and this was something I took seriously for the future. Next, we needed to determine a venue for the graduation. Since this is an informal gathering, it will not take place at my school. Given the number of attendees and the amenities we required, renting a hall seemed to be the optimal choice. We engaged in numerous discussions and negotiations, which took nearly 2 months, before finally agreeing on a venue that met our needs and stayed within budget. Unfortunately, we later discovered that the date for this booking would pose a conflict for around 20 to 25 people, which is about a quarter of our class. Naturally, we had to adjust, moving the date to a week earlier, which appeared suitable for the majority. However, that venue was not available on our new date. After some negotiation, we were able to secure the same venue but for an earlier time. Instead of a dinner event, it would become a lunch gathering. This brings me back to Mark, who insisted that many people, including himself, would not be willing to wake up in the morning and drive all the way to the venue, despite the fact that the decor would create an evening club-like atmosphere. I should clarify that I'm not referring to an unreasonably early time, but nearly noon. I didn't fully buy into his claim regarding a large number of people not attending, because he provided no substantial evidence, and out of the 3 names he mentioned, I could only acknowledge 2 as potential absentees. Nevertheless, as a responsible planner, I took his input into account and explored the possibility of evening venues for that same date. This task was already challenging due to time constraints considering the exams and many venues being booked by other students, along with our limitations regarding budget, amenities, and scheduling. This is precisely why it took us over 2 months to figure everything out initially. At one point, having exhausted all other options, I decided to proceed with the morning schedule, reasoning that most attendees would ultimately show up for their graduation. The only obstacle preventing me from making this announcement was my payment coordinator, the individual responsible for handling transactions with venues and vendors once everyone pays him. Without going into details, let's just say there were delays, and Mark learned about this along with the fact that we were proceeding with arrangements he did not approve of. Soon, Mark reached out to me to inform me that his friend Sam 18M would not attend. Sam holds significant influence in our grade. If he doesn't participate, a considerable number of others likely won't either. This posed a dilemma not because we wanted them there, but because we would miss out on a group discount. I spoke to Mark and asked for a week before we finalized our arrangements, assuring him we would sort everything out. Mark agreed, and rather than directing blame at the timing, he shifted the focus to other factors, which was a distraction from the main issue. A few days later, I finalized a new venue through a contact, a friend of a friend. This was fantastic news because it not only offered everything we needed, but also came at a much lower price. Feeling thrilled, I shared this with Mark, who then mentioned a venue he had found as well. Despite my venue appearing perfect on paper, I knew from experience that I needed to visit it to confirm its suitability. I responded positively to Mark's suggestions, indicating we would discuss them after our next exam, and he agreed. The next exam occurred a few days later, so I was taken aback when I woke up the following morning to discover that Mark, along with Sam, Elle, and Julia, had gone ahead to advocate for their chosen venue to our parents, those who would be paying for it, since we are either minors or young adults in high school. Mark had not communicated this action to me or to any of the original planners. While I previously mentioned their minimal involvement, it is common courtesy to refrain from making such decisions independently, and they overstepped their bounds and took control. They hold more influence due to their popularity and are perceived favorably by the parents. At this juncture, I felt utterly flabbergasted. I immediately reached out to Mark about what was happening, and he offered a series of excuses. I tried to shift my focus to the positive aspects an evening graduation might indeed be an improvement, and as long as their venue fulfilled our requirements, there shouldn't be an issue. However, I soon learned that this new venue did not meet the necessary criteria. Mark had been aware of our needs for months. Rather than asking, he had erroneously assumed it was acceptable to overlook them. I informed Mark about my venue and its ability to provide everything we required, urging him to convey this information to the parents as well. He began making numerous excuses and had Elle and Julia assisting him. I was in a losing battle, but I insisted we at least visit both venues before making a final decision. Mark consented, even going so far as to add me to the parents' group where I advocated for this approach. Eventually, we reached a consensus that, while not in favor of my venue, partially due to Mark and Julia's influence, we would wait a few days before visiting both locations and making a final choice. To my astonishment, 2 days later they reached a decision on their venue without completing any of the agreed-upon steps. At this point, I realized they did not value my input. They could communicate when it suited them, but not with me. I felt profoundly disappointed. Julia, Elle, and I discussed what had transpired, and they apologized, assuring me it would not happen again. Sam, according to them, was never interested in participating. Mark did not offer any words of support. The following day, the four of them called me. My naive self assumed they would provide explanations, but instead, they wanted to discuss the theme, decor, and activities, the facilities for which I had insisted on arranging for the event. My friend Violet, 18F, and I have been creating the yearbook for our grade since middle school, receiving virtually no complaints and plenty of appreciation. One of the main activities planned for the night was a live presentation of our yearbook for this year, given the lack of funds for a physical copy, since this event is not affiliated with our school. I was taken aback by their irresponsibility and utter disregard for our prior commitments, particularly when they stated they would not assist with any of these tasks due to personal reasons. At that moment, I felt enraged because they wanted to dictate how everything would go without contributing to the effort. I voiced these concerns, which prompted yelling, and Sam muted me during the call, stating, "It's unfair to put words in our mouths when we've been sacrificing our study time during exams for this. I'm not suggesting you haven't done the same, but please show some respect." In hindsight, I regret not laughing, as I pondered what respect I had received from them. Instead, I concluded the conversation with some other remarks before exiting the call. At this point, I no longer wish to host my graduation, create the yearbook, or even attend. I am acutely aware that we would not be at this stage without my involvement. I can also assert that others stepping in to fill my shoes would not replicate the same dedication, as they lack the same passion for this endeavor. I can guarantee that, without my contributions, our graduation party would be as mundane as any regular gathering. Though I acknowledge this affects others, I wish for once to prioritize my own feelings. Furthermore, I know that approaching this half-heartedly will only lead to my disappointment. While I am aware I would regret my decision, I am fine with that because I already regret associating with these individuals and wanting to celebrate with them. So, Reddit, would I be inconsiderate for withdrawing at the last minute? If you took the time to read this, thank you. If not, here's a brief summary. TLDR. I, 18F, have dedicated months to planning my class's graduation party mostly on my own, as my team has been largely inactive. Mark, 18M, contributed somewhat but was often critical. We mapped out plans for a hoodie and activities, since our class is divided. My friends Elle and Julia, both 18F, designed the hoodie, but I had to advocate for a vote after some discontent, which strained our friendship. Following extensive venue searching, we settled on a lunch event. Mark opposed the timing, citing potential attendance problems, and went behind my back to have a different venue approved by the parents, one which didn't meet our essential requirements. He, Elle, Julia, and Sam, 18M, a popular student, finalized their venue without consulting me. I feel disrespected and no longer want to be involved, even though many people are relying on me and have paid extra, indirectly, for certain amenities and timing. Would it make me a bad person for quitting and not attending graduation? Story 3. I, 23M, don't know if what we have with my long-distance relationship GF, 23F, is healthy for me or if it's normal, and I should reconsider my priorities. I'd if I should break up or if I am the problem. I am currently in a long-distance relationship with my girlfriend, who resides in another country. We have been together for nearly 2 years. However, I feel uncertain about many aspects of our relationship, as this is my first serious romantic involvement while hers is her second, which was unfortunately marred by an abusive ex who cheated on her. At the beginning of our relationship, we agreed that I would not have female friends and she would not have male friends, as this aligns with our beliefs. Throughout the first year, everything progressed smoothly. We were deeply in love and spent most of our free time on phone calls and playing online games. We are quite affectionate with each other, continuing to exchange sweet, "I love you" messages and good-night texts. However, as time has passed, we have begun to argue more frequently, and she has become increasingly vocal about her expectations of me in the relationship. Over time, she has insisted that I am only allowed to speak to women if the interaction is professional. For instance, if we are dining out and there is a waitress, she would approach the situation, while I am expected to ask for a male doctor if I need medical help. I can't even shake hands with a female. There was an incident when I was grocery shopping and a woman in her 40s commented on a protein shake, saying it was ineffective. Out of habit, I politely smiled at her, which my girlfriend interpreted as flirting. When we watch Instagram Reels together, which is similar to TikTok but allows us to view content simultaneously, we usually do this before bed. Occasionally, there are Reels featuring women doing silly things, and while they may not be dressed inappropriately, I always cover my eyes if that's the case. She reacts with anger, questioning why I am looking at those women. Recently, I sent a simple happy birthday message to an old female friend with no ulterior motives, but when my girlfriend discovered it while browsing through my phone, it led to our worst argument in 2 years. She classified it as cheating, as I hadn't conveyed the message in a formal manner or informed her beforehand. Moreover, I play games with my friends on Discord. In one instance, I had a server with unfamiliar people because my friends often add others to it. Among them was one of my best friend's girlfriend and a girl who rarely joins our calls. Since I hadn't added my girlfriend into the server, she instructed me to either delete it or leave, so I chose to exit for my friend's sake. My girlfriend refrains from speaking with men unless she is compelled to do so for university group projects or professional situations, which troubles me. I feel anxious about casual interactions, like those with doctors, shopkeepers, or at the gym. She exhibits possessiveness and sensitivity in various ways. For instance, if I communicate with her in a straightforward manner because I am either exhausted or not feeling particularly affectionate, she becomes upset and feels hurt. When I mentioned that I needed some time alone, she interpreted it as a lack of love. Additionally, there are times when she can be annoying, even though I frequently reassure her that this is far from the truth. Once, I had a day where I felt down without any specific reason. She attempted to lift my spirits all morning, and after visiting the gym, I called her on my way home. When she asked how I was feeling, I shared that I was doing well after some self-reflection, which made her feel upset, as she thought that I found her irritating. Furthermore, she often expects a lot from me, despite the fact that we do not live together. She frequently wants me to make plans for our evenings, although she has gradually reduced those requests. At times, it seems she poses questions designed to ignite conflict, such as what I would do if a girl approached me and expressed that she finds me attractive. I responded that I would say, "No, I am married," which irritated her. She believed I should have been rude to the girl. I explained that I would be disrespectful if a situation like that occurred, but she dismissed my reasoning and labeled me as too nice. There have been multiple occasions when she has called me too nice, and during intense arguments, she has resorted to name-calling, using terms like stupid and deaf. I have consistently asked her to refrain from that behavior because I would never stoop to such actions, even in anger. There have been instances where I informed her I would be spending time with friends on Discord, and she reacted negatively because I wasn't showering her with affection. Additionally, when I planned outings with my mother and sister for a movie or a walk, and I informed her about it, she would become upset for not seeking her permission or notifying her in advance. She expects to be consulted, although she does not have friends and is restricted from going out by her parents. I tried to embark on a business venture with my best friend in content creation, and initially, she was supportive, outlining potential risks involved. However, the following day, she labeled me as ignorant, claiming that I disregarded those dangers and was irresponsible with money, suggesting I would waste funds on equipment. As a result, I no longer go out with friends, not even for birthdays. I have stopped going out with my mother and sister as well, and this has made me feel unwell. I often feel drained, especially during arguments, and I struggle with feelings of guilt because she is genuinely loving and caring. She goes out of her way to reassure and care for me. Whenever I feel overwhelmed and tell myself I need a break from being overly engaging, I can't help but think that I am the issue. The thought of breaking up frequently crosses my mind, even though she is a wonderful person who would likely make an excellent mother to my future children. Yet, I feel completely drained. I acknowledge that I have made mistakes. In the beginning, I was not accustomed to being in a relationship and would not respond when someone wore revealing clothing. I also struggle with expressing emotions, so I sometimes fail to provide her with the support she needs on difficult days. Moreover, I've found it increasingly challenging to create thoughtful gifts and plans for us, as I often feel mentally taxed. Having never experienced other relationships, it leaves me wondering if this is how it would be with anyone else. Apologies if my message is lengthy or disorganized. I am trying to condense my thoughts as succinctly as possible. I appreciate anyone who takes the time to read and offer their insight.